Hello and welcome to the Westerville City Schools podcast, We Are the Ville. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of Westerville City Schools and show you the ins and outs of how our school operates and the great kids we have. I'm your host, Melanie Amato. In our last episode, we learned all about Emerson and the Union School. I don't know about you, but it was fascinating to me that we are still using Emerson today. So now that we have a bigger school built, who is going to attend? And shouldn't those students who attend only live in the area around the school? There are so many townships and townships that only had one schoolhouses that were competing for the same people. So now it's time to consolidate. Please welcome back Chief Personnel and Policy Officer Scott Reeves. Hello, Scott.
Thank you, Melanie. Looking forward to getting into it. This is the good part today.
This is all right. I can't wait. So just take it away. You know, we have Emerson is built. We still have the Union School. We're now starting to see other townships send their kids here. They're starting to pay a tuition. So what happens?
Well, you know, really starting with the Union School, we talked about briefly in 1866. That was the first time that students outside of the municipal boundaries of Westerville began to come, thus the name, the Union School. And so that's about 159, 160 years ago in 1866. So for over 150 years, we have been educating kids outside of the bounds. That's a significant mark to come back to because it's not a new phenomenon. For over 150 years, we've been doing that. That continued to grow as we built a different school in Emerson, then called the Vine Street School. But we continued to grow, and we started consolidating. And let's start with Genoa Township. So Genoa Township, like every other township, had freckles of one-room schoolhouses scattered throughout where people lived or very close to where people lived. Schools, one-room schoolhouses that actually today are people's houses, but you wouldn't know it if you didn't see a picture. There's great resources, great pictures in the Westerville Library of those. But you've got schools that you may have heard of, or at least you're like, okay, I think I know where that might be, like the Tussock Road School, the Maxtown School, the Red Bank School, Southern Ridge School, which was on Big Walnut Road, and the Railroad School right on the Pennsylvania Railroad at Freeman and Route 3, which is not very far from where Faust is today.
Is that the bike path?
Yes,
today?
It is the bike path. The bike path that shoots right down the middle of Westerville was the railroad path. And there's probably people who've been here a while can remember when it was actually a railroad. And so it just became easier for Genoa Township, especially the southern part of Genoa Township, away from the city of Delaware, away from some of the other towns more to the northern end, just to send their kids to Westerville. And so they did. And eventually the entire southern half of Genoa Township just consolidated with Westerville City Schools. That was one of our first big consolidations. Big news article headline that says progress hits Genoa Township, that they were sending their kids to the cityfied Westerville schools. And the superintendent of Westerville at the time, Superintendent Johnston, in the fall of 1928 said, we need more buses. So we already need more transportation to transport kids from another area outside of Westerville to be educated in Westerville schools in the fall of 1928. So we're almost at 100 years where we are now bringing kids in from Genoa Township. So when people think about kids getting bused into Westerville, they tend to gravitate to the south.
Right.
But that happened from the north and the south.
And did we charge them anything to send their kids here?
We did. There were actual charges. It ranged from a couple of bucks a month, which was a lot then, not as much now, to $1 a day here. There was no real uniformity to it, but yes, we did charge tuition for students who lived in outlying areas to come to be educated in Westerville at the Union School and eventually at Emerson.
So they're coming in from Genoa, and then where are they going to start coming in from the east or west from Sharon?
Yeah, and you actually had, since the Union School was built, so the bulk of Sharon Township, just like Westerville was in the northern portion of Glendon, Worthington was in the western part of Sharon Township. And there's a huge gap between Worthington and Westerville, especially at a time when you walked or rode a horse, right on the border of Sharon and Westerville. And so you had the western part of Sharon Township kids, since the Union, or the eastern part of Sharon Township, since the Union School come across Main Street to come there. And after a while, for Sharon Township, it was just easier to build a school there or consolidate and cede territory from Sharon Township into Westerville Schools. And so in 1910, you had Blendon Schools, the township,
Yep.
and Sharon Township. They actually collaborated and built a school together. And that was the Jordan Road and Harbor Road School, which is actually in the village of Minerva Park. It no longer exists, but that exists on the border. What is the border of Sharon Township and Blendon Township? Cleveland Avenue. So when you're at the community center,
Yep.
when you're at the and actually in the building on the east side of Cleveland Avenue, you're in Blendon Township territory. You cross the street to the soccer fields, across Livingston, across Cleveland Avenue, and you've actually gone into Sharon Township. So Cleveland Avenue is the border between Sharon and Blendon Township. And so they built a school, and that extends from County Line down to Morris Road. So if you can picture Cleveland Avenue
Yep.
from County Line, right at the community center, Cleveland Avenue down to Morris Road, that is the border between Blendon and Sharon Township. So right about where Minerva Park is, Blendon and Sharon Township schools together in 1910 collaborated to build a school.
So did Westerville decide to take that over, or how did that become?
Well, it was easier for Sharon Township to just cede their eastern land to us.
Got
And
it.
in 1922, again, we talked about how big the 20s were.
Right.
In 1922, that's exactly what they did. So the northeast section of Sharon Township, they just transferred to Westerville Schools, which was outside of the village of Westerville. Where is that today? That's Sharon Woods. That's Annhurst. That's in the Northgate area across from where we know Villa Milana is, the neighborhood to the south of that. That area was ceded to Westerville Schools in 1922 by Sharon Township.
Wow. So at this time we don't have schools there, but we have all of those families and
Yes.
kids in that
In the
area.
northeast section, we really don't have schools there. It was more in the middle part where
Yeah.
we had the Jordan and Harbor Road schools. So in 1924, they collaborated again to build another school. They being Sharon Township and Blendon Township, and they built what is called Minerva Park Elementary School.
The same Minerva Park that we have today?
Hang on to that thought,
Oh, okay.
because most people say, wait a minute, I know we have Minerva Park Middle School,
Right.
but I've never heard of Minerva Park Elementary School. Well, Minerva Park Elementary School was a joint school built between Sharon and Blendon Townships on Cleveland Avenue. And because it was on the Sharon Township side, but south of what they ceded to us in 1922, it was transferred into Sharon Township's schools, but serviced kids from Minerva Park for a little while. And they closed the Harbor Road School because they built the new
one.
Minerva Park Elementary School. So in 1924, now you have a school that's actually in Sharon Township, but serviced by the western part of Blendon and the eastern part of Sharon.
So when did all of that, was that our only growth and consolidation at that time?
No. Obviously, the crux of where Westerville City Schools existed in Blendon Township. And so we began to slowly consolidate in Blendon Township. And so you have 1905 is when Central College, they had their first one-room schoolhouse, again, outside of the town of Almathea. And then you have, in 1927, they built an additional structure that was overcrowded. And Westerville Schools actually charged them, the kids from Central College, to come to Westerville Schools. And they start charging other Blendon Township schools on the fringes of Blendon Township to come to Westerville Schools. $6.50 for grade school kids, $11.50 for high school tuition.
For the whole year?
For the whole year.
Not a week, not a day?
No, and that
year.
was actually paid for, I believe, by Blendon Township Schools
Okay.
to Westerville City Schools. And Central College School, the one that we actually used for a while until it was torn down, was built in 1938, right on Sunbury Road. And it was built for $10,000. Imagine building a school for $10,000 today. And the buildings that were on that property, the board sold for $190 and $130. And they built additions and all of that. But you actually had schools, 8 different districts were around Blendon Township outside of Westerville. Some other names you might have heard.
Okay.
You had County Line School on Nathan Smothers Road. Today, we call Nathan Smothers Road County Line. But when you cross the bridge, it becomes Smothers Road again. That was after old Nathan Smothers Road. That was there until 1918. And then from about 1880 to 1927, you had Hickory Point School, which is on Lee Road on the other side of, wasn't a reservoir then, it was just Alum Creek, Little Old Creek. You had on Lee Road, Hickory Point School. You had 8 Square School on Cherry Bottom Road that served the southeastern part of the school. You had the Lynn School, which was on Sunbury and 161. That's down not too far from where Wilder is now.
Okay.
So you're talking about serving kids from that area. You had the Spring Heights School on Spring and Hempstead. So that's not that far from both Walnut Springs and McVeigh. Not that far from those schools. You had the Jameson School. Now the Jameson School was across from the cemetery on Route 3. What's today across from the cemetery on Route 3? Bob Evans. It's where Bob Evans is down the street from a district office. There was a school there called the Jameson School. It lasted 1 year. You know why?
Why?
Because they celebrated the end of the school year by taking their papers and burning them in the stove to celebrate the end of the school year.
They catch the school on
The
fire?
roof caught on fire.
Oh, no.
And the school burnt to the ground.
Oh,
and they never rebuilt it. And so they ended up shipping them into Westerville City Schools. And then you had the Vance School, which was on Route 3, a little further down, south of 161, as you're into the Minerva Park area. So you had 8 different places that existed until the 1920s. And they just began to say it is easier for us to just send our kids into Westerville because it's closer than anywhere else. And they had the Vine Street School, but the Vine Street School was only built to hold so many. And very quickly, we outgrew the Vine Street School.
So we outgrew the Vine Street School. So what comes next?
Well, an interesting transportation innovation happened in Westerville.
Okay.
The capital city of Columbus in the 1920s, like Westerville and Blendon Township and a lot of other suburban areas, were growing. The capital city brought commerce, brought population. So Columbus itself was going from a cow town to a more industrialized city. And they built big, huge high schools that are just spectacular then. They're beautiful today. And they're directional, kind of like our directional schools. You have East High School out on Broad Street, North High School north of campus, West High School on the hilltop, South High School off of Parsons, Central in the middle. There's Central's in the middle. Today we call that COSI. And then they built Lyndon McKinley High School in the Lyndon area that the city of Columbus had acquired after the recently slain president from Ohio, William McKinley. Well, we had to build a school too. And Westerville felt that to keep up with our growth and to be prosperous, we needed to connect ourselves to the capital city.
Okay.
And so Columbus at that time had basically a spider web of trolley lines all through the city. And there was a desire to connect the trolley line from Columbus into Westerville. And so they actually did that. They built a trolley line down State Street and connected it to the line from Columbus coming up Cleveland Avenue, and they connected it right through a park. And it was a park of it was a farm of a worker from the railroad. And so the railroad used the farm of their worker and said, well, we're going to give the folks something to do in between. So they built an amusement park. And they built a big casino, a lake that they constructed in there, and there was a zoo in there, and there was gambling, but no money. How you do that, I don't know. And so the president of the Green Line Rails, what they called it, his wife's name was Minerva. And so they named the amusement park Minerva Park. And so the trolley line connected Cleveland through Minerva Park into Columbus. Well, the park eventually closed down, but the trolley line made it very easy for kids to get into Westerville up State Street. And by the 1920s, Minerva Park began to build houses. And so you had students from Minerva Park coming into Westerville. And so what happened next? What happens when you run out of space for kids in schools? You build another one. And that's exactly what Westerville did. And in 1923, we opened the Westerville Junior Senior High School, which was actually south of town. Today, we call that school Hanby.
Wow. So, and again, Hanby has always been in the same place when it was built to back in the 1900s. So
1923.
Again, another fantastic building.
Yeah.
The school that has lasted that long. So do you think people get confused? Should we have had a different name, instead of calling ourselves Westerville City Schools?
That's coming, and hang on to that thought.
Okay, all right.
So as we continue to have Westerville Junior Senior High School, more and more students coming from around Blendon Township started coming to the high school, the junior senior high school, because it was easy for them to educate elementary age kids.
Yeah.
But when they reached secondary level, they all came from around. Minerva Park kids took the trolley. They got actually trolley passes for good attendance to take the trolley. So kids were being bused from Genoa Township, and kids were taking trolley from areas south of 161. Remember, Minerva Park is south of 161. So much so we had to build another elementary school even further south of town because that's where our growth was. And by then they decided to name schools after poets and authors. And so in 1931, shortly after Hanby was open, the junior senior high school, we built Longfellow and changed the name of the Vine Street School to Emerson, after Ralph Waldo Emerson, the author. And so we are now continuing to grow. The city of Columbus is continuing to grow, which has a positive impact on Westerville schools. And eventually, more and more schools from Blendon just began to consolidate into
Westerville.
By the 1940s, the whole eastern part of Sharon Township schools, and this is what started to happen as towns and cities began to grow. The township schools became defunct. So you had Sharon Township schools, Genoa Township schools. They ceased to exist, and it was just easier to consolidate with existing school districts. And so by the 1920s, the southern part of Genoa Township ceased to exist as a school district and came into Westerville. By 1949, the entire eastern part of Sharon Township ceased to exist. The western part went to Worthington, the eastern part went to Westerville. And by the time you get to 1955, all of Blendon Township and Central College ceased to exist and consolidated wholly into Westerville schools. So, since 1955, the entire footprint of Blendon Township, of western Sharon Township, which went all the way to Carl Road, the southern part from about Freeman Road down of Genoa Township, and just the sliver of kids that lived in Plain Township, all of that. So, ask me, what is the footprint of Blendon Township?
So Scott, can you tell me what the footprint of Blendon Township is?
Melanie, I am so glad you asked
Me
that
too.
question. Here are the four corner borders of Blendon Township.
Okay.
To the northwest, Blendon Township is county line and Cleveland Avenue. We touched on that earlier.
Yes.
It's right by the community center. It goes all the way over to County Line or Smothers and Shot. It's about 6 miles.
Okay.
You go straight down from County Line, Cleveland Avenue to Morse Road, and Morse Road out to Hamilton Road. So from Morse and Cleveland to Morse and Hamilton, straight north to County Line, that is the footprint of Blendon Township, and that has been the footprint of Westerville City Schools. Westerville, we were then Westerville local schools at that point.
Yeah.
But that was our footprint, including southern Genoa, south of Freeman, and eastern Sharon on this side of Carl Road since 1955. In 1950, the city of Columbus was nowhere near that area. It did not stretch beyond what is North Broadway. A little bit of it was by Morse Road, but that was like Morse and High. There was no intermingling of our school district with the city of Columbus when we were at Morse and Cleveland to Morse and Hamilton.
So the city of Columbus never had claimed those kids to ever begin with.
No, those were Westerville kids officially. Since 1955, unofficially, they had been coming sporadically to Westerville since the 1800s.
So they are all our kids.
They have been our kids long before Columbus came.
Yeah. And do you think people get confused with the name? Do you think Westerville should have been called anything else to stop?
Perfect segue. So what happened in Blendon Township, the end of Blendon Township schools, the end of Genoa Township schools, the end of Sharon Township schools, consolidating with their towns and growing villages happened all throughout Central Ohio. What those school districts did, or a lot of school districts did, we chose not to do. A lot of those school districts combined the name of the town and the name of the township in their name. For example, you have New Albany Plain Local.
Yep.
The village of New Albany, the township of Plain. You've got Gahanna Jefferson Schools. The village of Gahanna, Jefferson Township. You've got Groveport Madison Schools. The village of Groveport, the township of Madison.
I see where you're going here.
Yes, and we chose not to be Blendon or Westerville Blendon Schools. Had we been Westerville Blendon Schools, like New Albany Plain or Gahanna Jefferson or Groveport Madison, maybe there would be less confusion as to why our boundaries go to Morse Road. Our boundaries go to Morse Road because that was the footprint of Blendon Township.
Right. You know, Scott, my mom was a history teacher, so growing up, you know, I heard history throughout my life, visit blank slates of, you know, battlefields that were just now a green hill. And this is just, you're opening my mind.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating to learn, you know, how much it stretches.
Yes.
And our boundaries stretch and have always stretched.
Yes. Actually, in 1955, and we'll get into this in some juicy segments coming up, our footprint of Westerville schools was bigger than it is today.
Wow, bigger. Well, I can't wait to find out, you know. So it's again, so land's taking off. We're got lots of schools, you know, coming in, and we have our first high school built, but that is now Hamby. So where did our first high school name come about, and when was our first high school built?
So
wait, we're gonna tease that till next time. So in our next episode, we'll learn all about that. So Scott, I appreciate again for you joining me today, and you know, we can't wait to hear the rest.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I can't wait to tell it.
All right.